Okay. I'm going to go ahead and call the April 25th, 2024 TRPA Hearings Officer meeting to order. It is 1:59. My name is Marcia Birch, and I'll be serving as the hearings officer today. So have there been any changes to the agenda? Seeing none, I'll approve the agenda as it was posted. So now we're going to have an opportunity for public interest comments for no action. So if any member of the public wishes to address the hearings officer on any item that is not listed as a public hearing item on the agenda may do so at this time. Public comments on any public hearing item will be taken at the time that agenda item is heard. The hearings officer is prohibited by law from taking immediate action on or discussing issues raised by the public that are not listed on the agenda. So I'm going to go ahead and maybe let's look online first to see if there's anyone online who has just a public interest comment.
If any member of the public online would like to make a general public interest comment, please raise your hand now by clicking the raise hand icon at the bottom of your Zoom screen or by dialing *9 if you've called in on your telephone. And we do have one hand raised, two hands raised.
Okay.
The first hand up is Aaron Burns. Aaron, please unmute to make your comment.
Hi, thank you. Can you hear me? Can you hear me okay?
Go ahead, Mr. Burns.
Cool. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Thank you. I do have a bit of an echo, but I'll just try to speak through it. I was actually expecting for the hearing to go a little further and then jump in. I do have a couple of questions with regard to Lakeshore, but I can either ask them now or we can wait till the rest of the hearing proceeds.
Well, Mr. Burns, are you intending to comment on a specific item that's on the agenda?
Yes. However, I am presently not looking at the full agenda, so at the risk of speaking out of turn, I prefer to actually stand down, and then I will ask my questions when the agenda item lines up with my question.
Yes, this is for general comments for items that are not on the agenda. So we'll go ahead and.
There we go.
Yeah, okay.
It's difficult to hear. If there's any way to increase the volume?
Oh. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's probably the better idea is if you would like to come and sit in those seats that are right here on the edge,
Closer.
that might be easier for you to hear.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have one more hand raised.
Okay.
The name on Zoom is iPad Casey. Casey, if you can please unmute yourself and state your full name for the record, you can make your comment.
Sure. Casey Lee Jansen. And in regards to the property at hand here, 453, it's more so how it's going to affect the view from the lake and stuff like that. So I don't know if it's better to do the same thing, wait until we get to that.
Yes, I'm going to stop you there. And
Okay.
we'll go and take the comments on that item when that item is heard.
Perfect. Okay, that's what I figured. Thank you.
You'll have an opportunity. Okay. All right. So are there any general public interest comments in the room?
This is about 425 Paiute.
No.
We're still on general.
This is just a time for general comment. Okay, seeing none, I will close the public interest comments. And I will announce appeal rights. Any decision of the hearings officer is appealable to the TRPA governing board. The notice of appeal, which can be found on TRPA's website, and associated fees must be filed within 21 days of the hearings officer's decision. All right, so we will then move to the public hearing items. And our first item, I hope I pronounced this properly. This is 5A. It's the Gedden Teal Single Family Dwelling Tear Down Rebuild Project, 315 Tuscarora Road, Washoe County, Nevada, assessor's parcel number 123-155-08, TRPA file number ERSP 2023-1617. And I believe this is Brandy's.
Yeah. No, you don't need that. It's just that.
Oh, just, thank you. Sorry about that. So my name's Brandon McMahon. I'm a principal planner in TRPA's Committee and Compliance Department. I reviewed the project on behalf of TRPA. I found the proposed tear down rebuild of the single family dwelling, to be in conformance with TRPA rules and regulations. Subject to the draft permit contained in the staff report. Typically, the tear down rebuild of a single family home is reviewed at a staff level. But this project site is in the Washoe County Tahoe Area Plan Crystal Bay Regulatory Zone, which indicates the project site may be subject to avalanches. So that therefore it's identified as a special use and requires hearings officer review and approval. In these instances, we do require as a condition of approval, a deed restriction requiring the applicant hold TRPA harmless in the event of an avalanche. And TRPA staff is recommending approval of the proposed project.
Okay, thank you. Have we received any public comments on this one?
No.
All right. And is there anyone here from the applicant who would like to make a comment? No. This was fairly straightforward, and I don't have any questions about this. So I'll go ahead and open it up for public comment. So these will be public comments on the Gedden Teal Single Family Dwelling Tear Down Rebuild Project at 315 Tuscarora Road in Washoe County. So if anyone has a comment that they would like to present on that project, now would be the time. I don't see any in the room, so Catherine, if you could check online.
If any member of the public online would like to make a comment on item 5A, please raise your hand now in Zoom by clicking the raise hand button at the bottom of your screen. And we do have one hand raised. Dale Smith, please unmute to make your comment.
This is Dale Smith with Smith Design Group in Incline Village. I am the applicant's representative, and I just wanted to weigh in that if there were any questions that I needed to address, I'm available.
Well, thank you. Okay. So I'll go ahead and close the public comments. And I don't have any questions. Again, very straightforward. So I will go ahead and approve the findings in attachment A and contained in the staff summary. I'm going to start over. I'm going to approve the project and the findings contained in the staff summary and make a finding of no significant environmental effect. And I'll approve the project based on the staff summary and record evidence subject to the conditions contained in the draft permit. All right. So we will move on to item 5B. And this is the Callier Single Family Dwelling Tear Down Rebuild Project at 425 Tahoe Road, Washoe County, Nevada. Assessor's parcel number 123-143-21. TRPA file number ERSP 2023-1610. And this is also Brandy.
So Kurt Callier, which I believe, are you Mr. Callier?
Mine?
No, that's Phil. I've never seen you before. I wasn't sure. Is Mr. Callier here?
No.
Okay, so Phil is his representative. Phil Gillenbar is his
Oh,
representative.
okay. All right.
It's funny. I've talked to Phil a million times, but I've never seen him in person.
Mhm.
They're proposing to tear down an existing single-family dwelling and build a new single-family dwelling at 425 Paiute Road in Washoe County, Nevada. This project is located near the previous project. It's in the Washoe County Tahoe Area Plan Crystal Bay Regulatory Zone, which indicates that this project site may be subject to avalanches. And so again, for this reason, single-family dwellings are identified as a special use. And the project is subject to Tahoe Regional Planning Agency Hearings Officer review and approval. Staff is recommending approval of the project, subject to the special conditions in the draft permit. And we are once again requiring a hold harmless deed restriction. because of the location of the property in an avalanche danger zone. We did receive one letter of support for this project from a neighbor. And then we also received letters from Victor, and I'm gonna Elgo Hari, expressing concerns with the proposed project and driveway configuration and requesting that the cul-de-sac at the end of Paiute Road be maintained as it currently is. Just for some background, Paiute Road, it's a narrow road that dead ends at the subject site. Based on Mr. Elgohari's comments, TRPA staff did send the plans along with his letters to Washoe County to get their feedback. Washoe County staff explained that the existing single-family dwelling was built into the cul-de-sac. I provided a photo of that in the staff report. That in 2022, the Washoe County Planning Commission approved the abandonment of a portion of that cul-de-sac where the existing single-family home was located. That decision was appealed to the Washoe County Board of Commissioners, which upheld the Planning Commission decision and ultimately made it to the Nevada Supreme Court, which affirmed the lower court's decision, which upheld the county's decision. TRPA has also approved the right-of-way abandonment, and that decision was not appealed. The abandonment application was reviewed by the county engineering department as well as the North Lake Tahoe Fire Protection District. And based on discussions with the county, they are fine with the abandonment, which has been completed. I sent the plans to Washoe County. They said that the driveway meets current setback standards, and that the driveway meets current county standards, as well as the 20-foot step back standard required by the county. It's my understanding that a demolition permit application has been submitted to the county, but they have not reviewed the full set of plans. The applicant is using all available coverage on the site for the proposed new single-family home. It was brought to my attention that in the staff report on page 3, that I made some typos with regards to the coverage numbers, so I did submit an addendum to that, and Catherine made some paper copies, and there's now copies online. I did talk with Mr. Gillenpar about Mr. Elogari's comments, and they want to move forward with the project as currently proposed. So if you have any questions, I'm available.
Well, I do have a couple of questions just to be clear. The
Okay.
reason that this is before the hearings officer is because of the avalanche zone.
Correct,
It ordinarily would be a staff level approval.
correct.
And the county will be issuing a demolition permit and building permit.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Mhm.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I understood the full, okay. So, I did read through all of the public comments. And I also read through the county documents relating to the abandonment. So I have familiarized myself with this project. And I did a careful review of all of the comments. I would like to hear from the applicant's representative if you'd like to.
Sure, Phil
Yeah.
Gillenpar. Thank you, Mark. First off, as always, we just love having Brandy do our project review along with Alan, because they do such an excellent job at really looking at every single aspect of projects. And when I tell you, I had a lot of questions about different things, because, we get into these new regulations where we're talking about 3 segment heights, and we're talking about existing coverage and proposed coverage, and it gets kind of complicated, and we're trying to do all this on an AutoCAD file and et cetera, and try to provide the right information. And sometimes the planners don't always get all the right information when they first get the file, so we have to produce a lot more. So at this point, we have done a thorough review also, and we have already addressed and accepted all the conditions. There's no conditions in the permit that we have any issue with, which included a construction management plan. I went forth and have already had an on-site meeting with the county road supervisor on-site to discuss the existing condition and the proposed condition. The planning and building division director and I also had a conversation. And she sent a memo out, instructing some additional, items to be incorporated into the construction management plan. So we've incorporated that into the construction management plan, which you have an email in your inbox that has all of those items addressed with the corrected plans, along with the construction management plan that details how we work within the right of way there. So with that, we're hoping to seek approval from the hearings officer. When we met with the county road supervisor, he was prompt to acknowledge that, there are currently, and I didn't bring them, this can't go on the screen, I'm sorry, but there's currently, six homes along Paiute. There's, of course, the seventh one is at the end, which has access from Amagosa, and then the subject property was at the end of the street. So there's basically 7 homes. 7 of them have over time received variance setback requests. 3 of them at 0 setback. One of them at 2 feet, one of them at 2.5 feet, and 2 of them at 3 feet, which include both properties that I understood were sent a letter in talking about the concern they have with the street. And those properties also received a 3-foot and a 2.5-foot setback reduction, which only further places these structures like right up against the streets and the property line. The streets there were built originally, Crystal Bay was a fishing cabin location, and it was never really designed to be dealt with in the summertime or in the wintertime. The streets are very narrow. Most of the homes are either encroaching on or over the property lines. In some cases, the roadway goes on one side or the other side of the property line.
I'm sorry, sir. I'm gonna go ahead and hear from him and you'll have an opportunity.
So as a result of that, when we met with the county road supervisor to address some of the concerns were brought up by the adjacent homeowners, is that we have the right to park off of the pavement within Washoe County year-round, with the exception of inclement weather. This is different than like Placer County and other counties, but in Washoe County, they changed the rule. Now you can park year-round off the pavement as long as it's not during inclement weather or when there's snow removal equipment active. We have a number of homes in the area, plus the casino down the road that have offered parking spaces for us for their construction workers. So we're talking about doing a lot of shared work where we just bring 1 or 2 vehicles in instead of 6 or 7, as you see on most every street here in Tahoe. There's a multiple construction site. So that's what our proposal is. So we're looking at really trying to limit the overall impact there. We're not proposing to close Paiute for any reason. Most of the delivery and receiving will just come into the end of the road and drop off or pick up or take a load and leave. And a majority of the equipment will actually come in and out of Wasso, which is the road above the street property. In which case, talking to the road supervisor, they've given us a mechanism in order to create flagging on that street that we can work with the county on flagging, because most of those homes can come and turn and go back from either direction because there's multiple accesses from Wasso. So we've tried to address all those concerns. The one item that really concerns me is that, and Brandy brought this up, we have an abandonment resolution. And if you were to look at page 5 of Mr. Algalori's exhibit, it shows an exhibit that shows the existing structure that was built 1938 or whatever it was, which we didn't get a historical acknowledgement luckily on that house, but it sat halfway out into the cul-de-sac. And all of the driveway and paving areas were in the cul-de-sac. Our proposal is to remove that house and that driveway area, which is within the abandonment, and push the entire house back 20 feet from the new abandonment line, which is the new property line. The roadway doesn't change at all. The roadway that is currently there today doesn't change in size or shape, doesn't get smaller, it doesn't become more impacted. However, by moving the house back, unlike the other neighbors on that street, by moving the house back, we're meeting the Washoe County condition of setback at 20 feet. And so visually for line of sight and for maneuverability for a vehicle to turn around, there's a much larger visual space at the end of this cul-de-sac. Now, in 1982, the county acquired a portion of land associated with a Forest Service parcel and shifted the existing cul-de-sac circle, of course, only on one side, on the downhill side, 30 feet down Paiute, which when they looked at it yesterday, they were surprised. The county road supervisor, who's newer, said, well, then we're just going to clean this up and pave it. That's their responsibility as the county. So I went back and looked at some of the allegations that were brought up by the property owners in the neighborhood. We have, obviously, when we meet with Washoe County Planning Commission to go through the abandonment process, we have a lot of discussionary items that are discussed during the process of an abandonment. Some of those things are included in conditions of approval and some of them are not. None of the conditions of the homeowner taking responsibility to rebuild the road or the cul-de-sac were taken into consideration by the Planning Commission, and therefore they wrote a resolution that does not require a homeowner to do anything within the cul-de-sac. The only item that they requested is that we meet the current setback requirements of 20 feet. I think it's important to understand that we're not lessening or taking away the current opportunity for the neighbors in that area to be able to maneuver on Paiute as it is today. During construction, we have a robust construction management plan, which I think addresses the concerns that were brought up. So in closing, obviously, if there's any questions or any other comments that I can respond to, I'm happy to do that, but I would hope that we receive final approval from the hearings officer.
Well, thank you. I have a couple of questions. One is for the areas where you will have off-site parking so that you can sort of carpool to the site. Is that going to be part of the management plan?
Yes, it's described in the management plan as there are a few locations at the very end of Paiute that can be off of the pavement. Because if it gets on the pavement, then you're subject to being towed. There's probably 2 or 3 spots, but we're also going to maintain the entire existing driveway that currently exists today on the property until we're prepared to put in the driveway. So it's a pretty large area. It probably will accommodate 2 or 3 cars or 2 cars in a lot of construction material, depending on what part of the construction process we're in.
Okay. Thank you. I will go ahead and open it up for public comment. Let's start online.
If any member of the public online would like to comment on item 5B, please raise your hand now in Zoom by clicking the raise hand button at the bottom of your screen. Or by dialing *9 if you have called in by telephone. There are no hands raised, although those first 2 commenters, I believe, are about this item.
Yes, I think so.
I think they were about oh, you're correct.
Oh, no, they're about the
I think
lakeshore.
they said Lake Shore.
Okay.
They might have been for Allie's project.
Okay, then we have no hands raised online to comment.
Okay, well then we can go ahead and take public comment here in the room. And if you'd like, you can step to the podium or you can stay seated and just identify yourself. And
She's opening it up for comments.
Okay. Hi, my name is Fred Griffinstein. I live at 440 Paiute, which is the house on Paiute closest to the construction site. I'm very concerned about access on Paiute, especially during the construction, but even after. Last Thursday at this time, I was at the Incline Village Community Hospital. Anyone who has any question about that can have a look at the visit report. I need to be able to get out to doctor's appointments and to the hospital when necessary. So as was reported before, It's a very narrow street. There are 4 places where the road is less than 7 feet wide, and only 2 places along the road where two vehicles can pass each other, and not necessarily big vehicles either. So one of the things that I would request would be that if you're actually going to close the road, for example, to bring the 10-wheel vehicle backing up by you to drop off large equipment like front end loaders, I'd like to have advance notice so that I can move my vehicle off of Paiute so that I can walk down the street, get in my vehicle and go to my doctor's appointments. This seems simple and common sense, and it's hard for me to see how anyone could object to that. I'm basically speaking in favor of the project. I think that the new house will be an asset to the community. And by moving it back to 20 feet, that was the condition that literally all of the neighbors wanted to see at the beginning. Had they just agreed to that, there would have been no reason to do the abandonment in the first place. And we told the architects and Mr. Collier's representatives that right at the time, but they went ahead anyway. That's water under the bridge. What I'm concerned about is that since the abandonment has been done, part of the turnaround will actually be Mr. Collier's property. And I don't know what, other than this organization saying so, would prevent him from parking anything he wants on that turnaround at the end of the street. So effectively, maybe yes, there would be a larger turnaround, but if he's parking there, then that is not going to make life easy for anyone who lives on the street. I've seen numerous occasions, and I have videos and photographic evidence as well of Mr. Collier and his relatives and employees parking right in the middle of the turnaround. They just drive up and abandon their vehicle right there.
Okay, so do you have any other, I understand you have 2 points that I just took note of. And if you have anything else, we're gonna try to keep the comments moving along. So if there's anything else.
Yes, well, of course, the Colliers have had months, in fact, years to comment on it. And I think 5 minutes is not excessive. So yes, those are my points. No parking in the roundabout after construction, and a plan for notifying people in advance if the road is going to be closed for more than 20 minutes, getting large vehicles in and out.
Okay, thank you. So before we move to the next comment, I actually have a couple of questions that I think Phil might be able to answer. So you did mention that the project isn't going to reduce the size of the cul-de-sac. And I just want to confirm that that's.
Well, the existing asphalt that is there today that represents the Washoe County Road has not changed and won't change.
Okay,
The improvements that were made by the homeowner in 1938 or 1945 or whenever those improvements were built and constructed, built the driveway and the house out in the cul-de-sac, because at that point, there was really, no one really knew where property lines were. And in fact, in 1982, the GIS for Washoe County shifted the Nevada state line 6 feet. So there was a whole bunch of properties in that zone that ended up falling off of their property because the map had been corrected under the GIS system. In order for us to acquire the land that was, or the coverage that was created by that homeowner, we had to do the abandonment because there was no other physical way to achieve the coverage necessary to rebuild the home on the site without the abandonment. The TRPA doesn't have a mechanism for us to take that coverage and move it back onto the site. So that was the purpose of that. And we have no issue with, we already had, included in our, construction management plan that there would be homeowner notification if we were gonna, and we had it on here if we were gonna have a roadblock for more than 30 minutes, but we can change it to 20 minutes. But, you know, our construction management team will be posting a notice on everyone's door. And hopefully, in most cases, they're gonna become very familiar with every neighbor and be able to kind of communicate them or send them a text or something like that, because there's only 6 neighbors there. So, because all the neighbors on the uphill side get to their home from Wausau and not from Paiute for the most part. I hope that
Okay.
clarified those.
How much notice will there be?
Well, you suggested 20 minutes, I don't have a problem with that. If we're gonna block the road more than 20 minutes, then we're gonna notify all the homeowners
I
that
think
we've
he's
got an
asking,
issue.
and when will the notification be provided?
No, probably the day or two before. In fact, in most cases, we're gonna have a pretty good schedule for the whole week that we can tell you ahead of time,
That's great,
Okay.
right?
thank you.
Okay, and so, yeah, that was my other question was gonna be about notice. And then I have a question for Brandy about, so there are existing parking restrictions that prevent parking in a roadway, which would affect the cul-de-sac area.
Well, the roads that they're maintained by the counties and the county set standards. But you obviously cannot park in a location that would prevent people from using Paiute Road. If there's some additional signage or something that needs to be placed in the cul-de-sac to prevent people from parking there, that is something that should be discussed with the county.
Right. Would that be something the applicant would be open to?
Well, in communicating with the county road supervisor, he indicated that they would be doing 2 things. One is that they are looking at, of course, patching and sealing all the roads in Crystal Bay over the next 2 months. So we're gonna be in coordination with them because we don't wanna be double blocking the streets even worse from there. So we're already trying to work out a schedule together with, I don't know if it's Sierra Paving or whatever the company is that is contracted. But he also said that they're looking at expanding the area because of this acquired land that the county purchased in 1982 under an amendment, under a, what we call it, a reverse condemnation or whatever, however they acquired it. And so they're going to enhance that. As far as the county regulation, he says that they take complaints seriously. If somebody parked on the street, they're gonna have the sheriff come and the sheriff will make notice and tow the vehicles. And if somebody's parked in a cul-de-sac. This particular project is going to end up with a 3-car garage and a 2-car driveway, all of which 5 vehicles are parked within the property line. So there is really no more reason for them to be parking outside of the property line. And there's regulation under Wash County's ordinance that can prevent that from happening. I'm not sure about signage, that would be a Washoe County Road Department
Mhm.
item.
Could I comment on that, please?
Yes, briefly.
It's a 6-bedroom house. And, a 2-car garage and a short
A
driveway,
3-car garage.
a 3-car garage and a short driveway is probably not gonna be enough parking. And that's why I'm concerned about, Collier leaving cars parked in the turnaround.
Okay, thank you. All right, do we have any other public comment?
So, my name is Terry Lowry and I own the home closest to this project.
Okay, Terry, do you mind coming up to the podium? It's just that this is the microphone
Oh,
that's picking it up.
Or you can sit down in the chair if you'd like. I'm okay there.
Okay.
So I'm Terry Lowry and I'm the house closest. This one's gonna be breathing down my neck, literally. And that's not why I moved to. But anyway, that's a different story. So I'm just concerned with what he was saying about closing off Wausau, because I'm worried about getting out too. You know, I've lived through a couple fire seasons up here and, you know, if you have this Wausau blocked off, you know, that's where the fire hydrant is. It's right across from my property. And, you know, I usually head toward the casinos, on Wausau to get out, to get onto 28 and to get to Incline Village or Kings Beach or whatever. And, because if I go the other way, you have to take a left or a right on a blind curve. And it's really hard to get out. So I always go the other way because it's a lot safer for me. And, So if he's gonna have flagmen there and stuff, literally, his roof is cantilevered and touching my carport practically. And so to pull my car out and get out, that's what I'm concerned about, and I haven't heard about how long is this gonna go on, years? Like, is it gonna be blocked off for years, or
Well,
with these flagmen he was talking about, and?
well, so I would say, maybe I'm gonna go ahead and let Phil clarify that. I didn't hear him say that the road would be blocked off for any
Well,
length
basically,
of time. I'm gonna go ahead and let him
Okay.
respond.
right,
Yeah, so we are proposing to build a home within the setback, so that there would be
Right, yeah.
a setback reduction there on that, so not setback reduction, but setback conformance on that, on your side of the property line there. If Wasso is closed, it would be under the same, construction management plan. We would be first sending a notice to, and a request to Mitch at the county, who does the review of closures and signage. We would then indicate what that would be for. We're looking at potentially 3 or 4 times during the course of construction for 30 to 40 minutes, maybe an hour, depending whether it's a crane or it's loading a truck or unloading a truck. And that would be it. And it would only be for the limits of that actual piece of property. So your driveway access would only be interfered with for that short period, but would give you the ability to go the opposite way, the other way back to Anacosa still, or the other direction. And those would be then, like suggested as the other homeowner, that you'd be notified that ahead of time. So you would know in advance that tomorrow from 1 to 3, there'd be this situation where there's a crane sitting there for an hour or 2 or whatever that would be. So we're gonna be I think Jim Roth, our construction manager, will be very hands-on, and will be reaching out to everyone and make sure there's a really clear communication. But we also have the extra step of the county wanting to see these closure management plans prior to having them done.
and so my question to you is, if this is not what happens, if it is closed for the whole day and you've only said it's gonna be closed, who do I go to complain and get it resolved?
Well, when we go through that process, you'll get a notice, not just from us, but also from Mitch Fink at Wash County, which will give you contacts for either enforcement or the sheriff or the county road supervisor, who would be
Okay,
there to address the situation.
all right.
Right, thank you. All right,
Yes, let me begin, since you've already told me that you read all the materials I prepared. Were you able to watch the videos, both of the streets and of the particular circumstance of the truck trying to turn around?
I did see the video.
Are you able to see them?
Yes.
Okay. So the issue that well, there's 2 things. So I'm representing myself as a property owner, and then my neighbor is on a flight right now to Virginia, so he can't attend it. So he asked me specifically to represent him in this matter before this hearing.
And what is your neighbor's name?
My neighbor's name is John Clymer. He's at 480 Hoot. So let me begin with Mr. Clymer, because his concern is rather simple. So he's the house right at the peak before it makes that sharp turn. And his biggest concern is those giant dump trucks are gonna pass within a foot of his house. And he has a big concern about his house getting hit, his vehicles getting hit, or people getting injured. So he has a big concern with such large vehicles backing up the street. And his position is he would prefer to see something smaller, or perhaps even excavate and pull it up the hill to Wasso, rather than, I presume there'll be dozens of trucks in order to remove not only the building itself, But I understand there's gonna be significant grading, so I would imagine, like I said in my materials, there's probably easy 20 to 50 tons of material coming off of that property. So that's Mr. Clymer's biggest concern, is that he doesn't get hurt. So it doesn't take much. And the other thing is enforcing the promises that were made throughout the abandonment. When we brought all this to the intent, when this whole abandonment thing started, the complaint was always, how are you going to take care of the turnaround? You promised to make something better, something different. And the reality is you've taken all the coverage and you've put it in the building and a driveway. And then all the stuff that you've removed that I showed in the green area, that all has to be revegetated, so you can't use it. It'll be unusable. And, you know, this whole idea of this, this quitclaim deed that they got, and my understanding is that's where they push off the snow. So someone was thoughtful enough and said, we don't want to be trespassing on property, so we're gonna get, you know, we're gonna do this right. I mean, you're a real estate attorney, you can understand that, you know, someone thought, okay, let's take care of this. And that's what that's for. And even if you pave it, you can see the truck, it used that space. And it couldn't turn around. It took him a good 10 minutes. So it wouldn't be nice to see the promise that were made both at the planning commission, at the board of county commissioners. Have that promise held and figure out a way where you're gonna buy coverage to make the turnaround the way it is. The setback doesn't matter because the house is already out of the old cul-de-sac. It's not that hard to get an easement, just like I showed for the Ganawabi issue. That's how they took care of it one street down. I don't understand why it is there can't be a conversation about how to make that a navigable road now that he's moved the house. This is a perfect opportunity to do that. But if you take all the coverage and put it in your house, there's nothing left. Unless somebody wants to buy some coverage somewhere else. And who should buy it? And who should do it? That's the concern. This is the time to fix it because they wouldn't address it during the abandonment because they claimed that none of these issues mattered. Enforcing chapter 32 didn't matter. Enforcing the street design didn't matter because it was an abandonment. And I said, you need to address it all at once, and they refused. So now we're here, back at the start, saying we should have done this 3 years ago. And had we done it 3 years ago, you'd probably have a house built. So that's the concern that I think should be addressed for this project to go forward.
So I'm clear on what you're saying. You're saying that there should be some improvement to the cul-de-sac, to the turnaround area.
Yeah, I'm essentially saying, you know, Mr. Calais made all these promises in front of multiple, you know, boards, said, I will do this. The plans don't show that. They show the opposite. He's taken 3 more feet off of that cul-de-sac, and it's now his. And you also need to think about future owners. A future owner can erect a barrier right on that line. And then what are you gonna do?
I can support what Mr. Elguerre said. Both Gillen Farr Architects and representatives of Mr. Callier promised along the way that they would improve the roundabout. And in the final plan, there's nothing to do that. Not only that, this guy Jim, who came by yesterday and said he works for Mr. Callier, but he couldn't give me a, you know, what he does for him. His comment was, I do whatever Kurt tells me to.
Okay.
And he said, yes, we're going to improve it, but it's not in the plan.
Okay, so Phil, I'm gonna ask you to respond to that. I did look at the staff report and the approvals for the abandonment that the county prepared. And so I didn't see any conditions that required an expansion or improvement of the cul-de-sac, of the turnaround area.
No, the promises were made on the record. I mean, I put them in the memo. I mean, he sat up there and said, we're gonna improve it. We're gonna work with the TRPA. We're gonna work with the county to improve it. Well, that means you need to find coverage to fix it. But if you take all of it and give it to yourself, you haven't done that.
Okay, and so I do understand your comments, and I do want you to feel assured that I read through all of it. I have a question for Brandy. This notion that there could be some kind of a structure or obstruction in the future on the edge of the property there. I would assume that that would require a permit of some kind.
Are you saying like if they gated off the driveway or they put boulders on the site to prevent
Right.
parking?
Yeah.
It depends on what's being proposed, like some boulders to prevent parking does not trigger a permit.
But we're talking about the property that belongs to the applicant.
But yeah, like
Okay.
if they were adding new like land coverage, yes, that would trigger a TRPA permit.
Okay, but this isn't, we're not talking about some kind of an obstruction that would be off from the applicant's property.
I'm talking about an obstruction that like we do all over the country. You put a fence, it's right on the line. It's an obstruction that divides the property.
Right.
And you can make that out of anything. You can make a fence, you can make an iron gate, you can use large boulders, you can do whatever you like. It's your property.
Okay. So, do you have any other comments? All right, thank you. And thank you to everyone who has come and commented on this. I think it makes sense to, I know there's the condition requiring the construction management plan. And I'm thinking that maybe including some language that says that the county will be approving that plan and that we would be wanting them to implement the plan that was approved by the county. It seems a little bit redundant for us to have a requirement for a management plan when the county is already in the process of having one prepared and that they will approve, right? So that is gonna go through an approval process with the county.
I can comment on that.
Yeah.
Did you want me to respond to any of those other items or not?
If you would like to respond.
I wrote a couple things, as much as we have made it an assurance to the county that we will participate in and work with them to enhance the road. It is not our responsibility as a property owner, nor any other property owner, to construct a Wash County road. We can't do anything about how the county wants to achieve that compliance to their own code. We've met with the county road department. We've found different options that they were unaware of to create enhancements. And we've offered certain things like when we're doing the grading, we can maybe be available for them to use our grading to move that information around, but put base in, those kinds of things. So we're already working in that mutual respect to the county to try to find ways to enhance that cul-de-sac. Coverage, obviously, for county area, county right-of-way comes from off-site coverage, which is not something necessarily that the county is paying for, correct? With respect to, once we remove coverage and restore it, I think knowing Rachel Lopez and Stephen Sweet, they're going to be very specific on making sure that we prevent vehicular access past the edge of pavement onto the property, unless it's a paved approved TRPA driveway. So obviously, we're going to need to put landscape and boulders or split rail fence or something there to prevent the vehicles from parking in this now restored area. And that's typically what we do. Kelly Mullins from the county, who is the director, and I have already met. I took her requested conditions that she wrote me last week, and I incorporated them into the construction management plan. And then we're going to make a small adjustment based on the comments made by the public today to that construction management plan. And I'm sure Kelly will say that this construction management plan is acceptable and send that to Brandy. And I don't have any issue with that additional condition.
Okay. Thank you.
I have two quick questions.
Yes, please do, and then we'll wrap up.
Yeah, number one is, who's responsible for enforcing chapter 32 of the code, number one? And then number two, for Mr. Callaway specifically, why would he be opposed to restoring that turnaround and making it an easement like we do on Yonawata? Why is that a problem?
Well, I would say this, the TRPA's code is implemented by TRPA, and I don't know that, and Mr. Callier isn't here.
Well, his representative can answer. I'm just curious why that's not a feasible idea.
Phil, if you would like to answer that, please do.
We've discussed numerous options with the county, and when the county with some direction from TRPA because of the coverage situation, we determined that with the county that the abandonment was the most appropriate situation, especially given the fact that the county had acquired an additional piece of right of way east of this current area, which they could then enhance at any point in the future. It's the responsibility of the county to follow this chapter 32, paving and roadway widths, and I believe that's the chapter he's referring to.
Chapter 2 is basic, services, so, you know,
Right.
paved access,
Oh,
water,
30,
so,
30,
yeah.
yeah.
30.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you know, as you mentioned previously, the abandonment has gone through not only the county planning commission voting in favor of that, but also the appeal was overturned, or the appeal was denied. The Washoe County Court denied it, the Supreme Court in two different situations. In Nevada also did the same. So 6 different times this has been vetted through the process. And we believe that we have done the right process. And the result will be, in the end, a much better situation for the residents on Paiute when the home is pushed back and the county has the opportunity to enhance the end of the road.
Thank you. And to be clear, the abandonment, of course, is not what is before us today. This is just for this permit
I
specifically.
have a
For
question unrelated, just one, but you've spoken many times of the construction management plan. Is that published anywhere? Where is that?
Once it's approved by Washoe County and TRPA, it will be as part of the TRPA permit and it'll be issued, and be available on the TRPA
So that will be
website.
publicly available?
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely.
And
Okay,
we will probably, Jim, who you met briefly, who would be the project manager, I'm not really sure why he wasn't clear on that,
Yeah,
would be probably providing you the same as a neighbor,
okay,
out
that'd
of
be
courtesy,
good. Thank you.
okay?
okay. I don't have any more questions, and thank you to everyone who came and commented on the project. Randy, for all of your hard work. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and approve the project and approve the findings contained in the staff summary and make a finding of no significant environmental effect. I will also approve the project based on the staff summary record evidence subject to the conditions contained in the draft permit as amended during this hearing with respect to the construction management plan. Okay,
Did you get her? Change the coverage numbers?
yes, yes, I did. So, yes, and so the approval would also include the amended coverage numbers that were corrected.
That were corrected in the staff report, and in the permit attached to the staff report, the coverage numbers were correct.
Okay, all right, thank you. Okay, we can now move on to item 5C. This is the Floyd Single Family Dwelling Addition, 453 Lakeshore Boulevard, Washoe County, Nevada. Assessor's parcel number 123-250-10. TRPA file number ERSP 2023-0817. And this is Ally's project.
Yes, so, yeah, my name is Ally Borowski and I'm a principal planner here at TRPA. And today we are discussing the project at 453 Lakeshore Boulevard. The project proposes a addition to the existing garage, enclosing a set of exterior stairs that go down to the main residence. It also includes somewhat of a exterior remodel on the bottom floor of the main residence. This project is being brought forth today to the hearings officer because it is in the Washoe County Tahoe Basin Area Plan in the Crystal Bay area, which is in an avalanche area, just like the last two projects. So that requires special use findings and the recordation of a deed restriction to hold TRPA harmless in case there is an avalanche in that area. So that's the background of the project. I have not received any public comment, but it does sound like there might be 2 people online, so we'll see what they have to say. And if you have any questions, I'm here, and Phil is also the representative on the project
Oh, okay,
and here.
okay, thank you. I don't have any questions at this moment, so I will go ahead and hear from the applicant's representative.
Yeah, thank you. And again, thank you, Ally, for putting together a very detailed analysis here. We have a lot going on here because it's an existing house sitting on the water. Can't really see very clearly the addition that's proposed, but we still are trying to make sure we follow all the scenic requirements. There were 3 items in the permit that we wanted to get clarification on. Item 3C, we had understood that to be 11%, not the 5 to 7%, so we have not got a verification, but we believe that the existing home windows that were replaced with the newer ones at 11% based on that renovation. We don't have an issue with the 5 to 7% for the new addition windows, for what we're putting in, but we want to be careful we don't put undue hardship on a homeowner to replace all the windows that were approved a few years ago to be changed at 11%. That's the first item. The second item was that we have kind of discussed item I, which is 3I, the pier. This came much to the surprise of the current homeowner, who was unaware that there was any situation with his pier and was kind of surprised by that condition. We haven't really had an opportunity to really kind of vet out the situation with the pier and determine exactly what the situation is there, because he has a valid Nevada State Lands permit, and I think he was unaware that there was not a TRPA permit or even that he maybe needed one until I kind of explained to him the process. So we're asking if that condition can potentially be adjusted to allow for 3 options. Ally and I spoke about these just briefly this morning, but one would be that we increase, and here we have a 2-part bond, but we increase this to a 3-part bond. So a third part of the bond would be based on 110% of the cost to remove the pier. In the event that we can't meet the following conditions, either A, that we are able to determine that there was existing evidence that TRPA can accept that allows us then to certify the existing pier that's there today. That's option A, obviously the best option. Option B would be to utilize that bond to protect the removal of that pier and allow the homeowner to file an application through the allocation system in the next cycle, in the event that they may or may not be able to meet that cycle. They may or may not be able to meet that, right? Because we only know there's only 3 or 4 that go out as a single use pier, so we don't know if they'd be a lucky winner of a lottery. And then the third option, of course, is that they go through the process of removal. But if they go to the lottery system, they would be basically only enhancing the existing pier that is there to meet the current standards that are necessary from the standpoint of scenic, which would be paint colors, et cetera. And so it seems like maybe premature to remove the pier and then turn back around and reinstall the same pier. So we're asking if that is a condition that would be acceptable, which would adjust K, in that we'd be adding a third level of a security based on the removal of the pier. And Melly brought up one other point, which I believe I thought was already in the rules of procedure, which would be that, the homeowner would agree that in the event that they do not remove the pier within a certain period of time, or get it validated, or get it permitted, that that TRPA could reserve the right to have it removed using that fund. But I thought rules of procedure already covered that, but I don't think the owner has a problem with incorporating that language specifically. So hoping that we can have approval with those adjustments. I appreciate that our counsel is here because I'm sure he can weigh in on my comments.
So I have a question about, option B, which was make an application for an allocation. How long would that option be open? Because as we say, it's pretty, not great odds. of
Well, I mean, ideally, it would be available for, at least 2 cycles of the allocation process. But I think anything beyond that's probably not acceptable, but we're hoping that we can go through the process of finding evidence of existing conditions, like a bolt in a rock or something like that. We don't know what's existing because I haven't done any research at all. We have queried a couple of peer experts to investigate any type of historic data that we might be able to determine.
Okay, so I think I understand what you're proposing as a modification of this condition. How does staff, respond to that proposal?
I think it's generally consistent with a couple of significant departures that what we've talked about internally and talked with Mr. Gillenfar about. I don't think we are, 2 cycles could potentially be 5 years, or I'm not sure how many where we are in the current cycle. The lottery is every 2 years. So that is unacceptable to us. If they proceed to get a pier, there's no reason why they can't apply. If the pier has been removed, and they can keep applying until the supply runs out. So I don't think staff is interested in a period of time that incorporate multiple cycles. And the structure is basically the same. I do feel the key thing about getting specific permissions for entry to the property to remove if we need to pull the trigger on the security. So which is not expressly provided for in the rules of procedure. I just don't want to get into a fight.
We just wanted a clarification on this. I'm fine with it either way. I just was asking because I thought there was already a mechanism for somebody not meeting their PMPs or something, right?
Allie, do you have any other thoughts on how Bill characterized the condition?
I think, other than the one you just discussed, we are in agreement with his proposals of 1, proving the piers legally existing, 2, potentially seeing when the next allocation pulls. I don't know when that is, so.
I thought it was June.
I don't, we'd have to
Available.
talk to our source.
I'm not suggesting a 5-year. I'm suggesting that if it was this year and 2 years from now, then that would be the limit. I'm not suggesting we're going beyond that.
There's also, you do have the possibility you can buy a pier right and transfer it in as well. So you can move the pier from someplace else on the lake.
But I do agree
That
with
is,
the
we can have that as a third option, I guess.
It's open to you in the code right now. We don't need to provide it to you. It's already there.
Yeah, adding additional security of 110% of the estimated cost for removal. I think makes sense. There's potential of setting a deadline for that. And we were talking about potentially making that a deadline of within the next 6 months from issuance of permit.
But I suggest maybe we can investigate when the next lottery is, and if it's this,
Tiffany and Matt are both online, if you want to inquire.
okay.
Yeah, I would be happy to hear from them.
Matt, are you available?
Go ahead, Tiffany.
Hi, this is Tiffany Good, Principal Planner with the TRPA Permitting and Compliance Department. The next lottery is, will be June, excuse me, July of 2025. So it is not this year. And it does run every 2 years.
So, our position is they should either prove up or remove the pier. We can be a little flexible with the timing on removing the pier. In terms of if there was a lottery this summer, for example, but then that's pushing it out for another year and a half. For the next cycle. The pier has been there for, probably 20 years. I don't know if you know.
Been there as long as I can remember, so I don't know, I've lived in Crystal Bay my whole life, I don't think I ever noticed that there wasn't a pier there, but.
I think what this is the opportunity for the property owner to correct, and what we think is a likely illegal condition on the lot. And so I think it's, up to the hearings officer how you want to ensure that either we get compliance or they prove up.
So what you're saying is that it is not staff's preference to maintain that second option, which is to apply for an allocation because of the timing of the next lottery.
And they can either in the meantime, if they can't prove up, they could go out and purchase a pier right, transfer it in.
Right.
Or they can, Tiffany, is that accurate? They can secure a pier right and transfer it to this site?
Yes, they can, consistent with the rules and the code surrounding that activity, yes.
So as long as it's consistent with the parameters of the code, or they can apply for a apply for the lottery and see if they can get a pier allocation.
Right, which would come after the removal, so it would be the construction of a new pier.
Right.
Right. Okay,
I think we have public comment.
we do. I have a question. Tiffany probably knows the answer to this question. So the next lottery is in June and July of 2025. How long does that process take?
So we will open the lottery for lottery submissions in June. And then we would actually conduct the lottery in July. I believe there are 2 allocations available for single parcel piers, available next year. And then should, when the winners receive their allocation, we say winners, I won't say that, but the allocation recipients will have 6 months to submit an application to TRPA. So we still have to review the project once they receive an allocation to ensure that it's consistent with our code. And so that 6 months runs us into January of 2026 for the application deadline. And then it goes into our standard review process.
So in a situation where in this situation, there's an existing pier if they received an allocation and submitted an application, it would essentially be an as-built permit for the existing pier. Is that something that we will process in that way?
So one of the eligibility requirements in order to make submission to the lottery is that there is not a pier on the parcel at the time of application. So at the time of application, which is different than a lottery submission. So I'll just make that distinction.
So the way that we, I think, might reconcile that is if they could apply, if you're thinking you would like to provide them with an opportunity to do that first round of applications in 2025, that they could, and they could be eligible to enter the lottery with the pier on their property. And is that correct, Tiffany?
I think we could make that interpretation. We could interpret the code literally, read the code literally. That's what it says. It says as long as there is not a pier on the property at the time of application.
Okay. And then if they do win the lottery or get an allocation out of the lottery, then we can work with the fact there is an existing pier there that will be permitted by that application.
Okay, so that general rule that you can't submit an application if there's a pier on the property wouldn't be applied in this situation.
Is if they've secured a right to the pier, whether through transfer or the lottery.
The lottery. And so you also made the point, John, that if this was added as a possibility, this third part to the bond, 110% of the estimated cost of removal, that the permit would also require that all the necessary right of entry and permission would be granted at the time of the permit, in the event that TRPA had to enter the property to remove the pier.
I think we had set it up so it'd be at the time of acknowledgement.
Okay,
And that could be some kind of document that.
right, it's like a right of entry
Yes.
or something along those lines. Okay. Okay. So let's go ahead, Bill, do you have some?
My only comment was obviously for us, it's important that, you know, I think, given the kind of the shock of the homeowner who purchased this property for a fairly large sum of money without being clearly understanding that there was not everything on this property legally correct. I don't have a problem with setting a date after July 25 that's more stringent for the requirement to submit the application of, let's say, September 1 or something like that, because, you know, there are drawings already formulated for that pier, and we would have, you know, to update the bathymetric survey and a few things, but an application could be prepared very short order from the time in the event that they were awarded one of those two. Now, there's still the option at this point where they may be dealing with the neighbor on the west side, because there's still an option that they could also apply for a multi-use if the adjoining property to the east already has a pier, but the one to the west does not. But I don't know what that situation is right now. This is all the thought process of trying to find multiple ways for this gentleman to resolve the situation without the exposure of losing a property right that he thought he bought.
We don't need, it doesn't matter if you get an allocation from the lottery, it doesn't matter to us that you can expedite, you can proceed at what's required under the code. We don't need to have that expedited.
Okay.
Tiffany, would you agree with that?
Yes, I agree.
Thank you.
Okay, I have one more question about the options. The first one was finding evidence to that it's legally existing. structure. Will there be a time frame on
Right,
that?
right now that we have in the condition that is, choose me due by acknowledgement.
Oh, okay, okay. All right,
Yeah, so, you know, provide evidence that the pier is legally existing prior to acknowledgement. If it cannot be provided, then the pier must be removed, or we go into the second phase of posting an additional security, coming to an agreement for the removal of,
okay,
those two options are not satisfied.
okay, okay. Thank you. So I do believe we have some public comments. So anyone who would like to make a comment on this item? I just tell them how to do it.
Yes, thank you. Members of the public who would like to comment on this item online, please raise your hand in Zoom by clicking the raise hand button at the bottom of your screen or by dialing *9 if you have called in on your telephone. And I see those two hands up. First hand up was Casey, and Casey, if you could please state your full name for the record and unmute to make your comment.
Sure, Casey Lee Jansen, and I am right to the west, as Gillenfar had stated there. Property adjoining this property, our address is 451 Lakeshore, so right next door. As far as, is there a variance, or could there be a variance granted for above the 3 foot of the guardrail, since it's a new addition? I know the old house, right, the existing house has grandfather clause, I'm sure, but as far as a new addition, there, I would assume there is no variance, is there? To raise something that high, additional structure, as far as blocking view to the lake? Like the covered stairs, for instance, off the garage.
So TRPA doesn't protect views from private property. It would.
And I'm seeing from Highway 28 as I'm driving by to my property. So if I'm also going to be building a structure, and I have to follow the guidelines, right? You're not going to allow me to put my house up above the guardrails, no more than 3 foot roof line. So, which I'm not. It's already designed. It will be down the hill and follow all the guidelines. So what I'm asking is, does he have to follow those same guidelines? If not, why would he be able to? Additionally, expand his footprint and block views from Highway 28, especially it being a scenic route.
Yes, so, I'm not familiar with the guardrail rule. I don't think that's a TRPA rule, that must be a county rule. But there is a condition in the permit that they do need to provide evidence that they're not decreasing the numerical rating of the roadway unit. And demonstrate that there's an overall improvement to scenic quality as viewed from the roadway. So that is a condition of approval for this project.
Okay, so when you say improving, you're saying looking better, or because I would not consider making a structure wider, blocking view, improving, unless it's all glass. So that's what I'm asking. Where does that fall? Because that does fall into TRPA, correct? Blocking scenic views from 28.
Yep, and that is a condition of approval. They're gonna need to demonstrate that. I think there's probably a few different ways. It could be with more vegetative screening. Proof that they're not gonna be blocking views. I'm not totally sure what they will propose, but they will need to propose that.
Okay. Is there any way that we, as in public, immediate, even neighbors, would get some kind of renderings or something like that before you would approve such a project?
That's typically not what would happen for this project.
But I think can you post that on our public access website for the parcel? And can you set up an alert I mean, cannot they set up an alert that something is filed with, why am I blanking on the name of
The parcel tracker.
the parcel
On
tracker?
LTFO.
Yes,
So,
on Cella, parcel tracker, whatever.
We're not set up to alert the public on projects. But
No.
I could potentially do that, if something was prepared and attached, we could. So it's really up to the homeowner to check, they would need to check if new things are uploaded, but, I could get your contact information and we could provide that to you.
Absolutely. And I've worked with you guys on a few projects in Incline Village. So worked with Brandy in the past few times, States in just various different projects, Selby, just a few different projects throughout new construction. And that's the same thing we're doing at 451. But again, we're adhering to the guidelines, right? We'll be below, won't be blocking the scenic view. Once it comes through your hands, you'll see that. I'm just asking, with this project. So yeah, absolutely. I'll send over an email. And if you can keep me up to date, I'd love to see what's happening next door as far as expanding, potentially blocking views. I just want to make sure that's not the case.
All right, thank you. And
Okay, and then I have one more item as well. So I know this area very well because I own the next 2 acres beyond this parcel that we're speaking of right now at 451. Traffic on 28, as we all know, is very difficult to contend with. High speed of traffic, narrow through that area. There's just one simple turnout on the opposite side of the road. So how does he have to go through NDOT? Does this project have to go through NDOT and have pre-approved traffic control to actually get materials in and out? Because I know I do when I already have it approved actually with NDOT to actually have traffic control when I bring in my materials, when we stage, if we were to use a crane. Minutes are a big deal on Highway 28, right? And if you park across the road, which you can only get about 4 vehicles in the dirt, you're playing Frogger across that road. So just again, bringing up the impacts that can happen with this type of project on that stretch of 28.
do you want me to answer that?
yes, please, I would like that.
Yeah, we are not required to go through the process of an NDOT because we are not proposing a crane or anything like that. It's a simple frame construction. So materials will be staged in the driveway and unloaded from the right-of-way edge there without interfering with traffic.
There is no right-of-way edge there. The asphalt, his driveway, it drops off immediately at the edge of the road.
Hold on, we need to do one at a time.
Yeah.
So we spoke with
Okay.
Dawson, and we also spoke with the neighboring properties, which have a large asphalt area immediately adjacent to this property, for the including of that material. So we don't foresee any issue there, and neither does NDOT at this point.
Okay.
So unless it's with Crystal Shores and they've made new arrangements, because I've tried parking there when we did USA's on our property, and they came out and threatened that they called police. So that's the only adjacent that I know of, Phil. So unless you know of another one, that's it. So that's not accurate to say, unless you've paid them and they've approved that. I've not experienced that, and I am right next door. They threatened.
Okay, thank you. And did you have any additional comments?
I think that's it. The guardrails, being above the guardrails and traffic control.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and I think we have someone else online.
Yes, the next hand raise, or the last hand raise, excuse me, is Aaron Burns. Aaron, please unmute to make your comment.
I believe I'm unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay. Thanks for the opportunity to comment. Pre-apologize if my comments don't directly overlay with your, I'll say your jurisdiction, but because this is public commentary, I just want to present my concerns. So I think so first of all, I represent the interest in 451 Lakeshore as well. Lot B is in Bravo. I purely would like to have additional clarity on precisely what's being proposed to understand the impact on aesthetics, utility, and safety. Whether it was 3D renderings, to see what the impact is driving from east to west to east, with the impact on traffic, all of that. That really, it's just a fear of the unknown. 453, that property, it's already a bit of a hillside Winchester mystery house already, with very high visibility in the road, with mixed roof lines and elevator shaft sticking off the side of it. Power lines run into trees. It's already a bit of a lakeside disappointment. So when I hear about adding on covered staircases, it just, again, it's kind of fear of the unknown. I'd love to understand what's being presented. I may not have that right. Again, this is a public commentary, and I just want to bring that up. Given the fact that it is a scenic route, I've pedaled it many times. I've driven past it thousands and thousands of times. So it's of particular interest beyond just the fact that the obvious, which is I have an interest on the 451 side. So that's kind of a given. My concern would be that the covered staircase would look like a flume stuck off the side of the house. That's for those of you that are familiar with that property, which is pretty much everybody. You can imagine what I'm concerned about. So again, this is just my commentary. I'm not asking for any specific justification, but I just wanted to voice those concerns.
Okay, thank you. And similar to the last commenter, I think you'll be able to see the scenic analysis and these things as they become available on the parcel tracker.
Yeah, and I would say the plans are available now. So that could show the elevations and potentially the view from the roadway if you were directly looking at the home.
Okay.
So those are available now.
And that's something that is on the parcel tracker now, or, okay. So I don't know if you're familiar with the parcel tracker, Mr. Burns, but for each parcel, you would be able to access these documents. And if you need help with that, staff would be happy to help you get into that. It's a good source of information, and you would be able to see at least what the plans look like now, and then as things are added to it, the scenic analysis, et cetera, would be available. Okay, so thank you for your comments. Do we have anyone else?
No, there are no other hands raised to comment.
Okay. I have a question going back to the very beginning, and it has to do with the windows and the fact that there are existing windows that apparently are not very old, that are at 11%. I just wanted to get staff's reaction to the request that condition 3C would allow those 11% windows to remain.
Thanks for going back to that. Okay, that is good to go back to. I copied that reflectivity percentage from the proposed scenic analysis. In that scenic analysis, it said 5 to 7%, so that's what I included in this permit.
Texting staff, what the heck?
If you can make your scenic analysis from the lake, calc out, proving that the 11% and then the 5 to 7 was proposed, I think that's fine.
Okay.
I just put in there what was proposed.
Okay, and so you would be okay with amending that condition to reflect what you just said, which
Yes.
was if the scenic analysis, if they're able to meet that scenic analysis with the existing 11% windows in place,
Yep.
then that would be okay. Okay. Okay,
I would amend the permit to say that.
okay. Okay, so, I think what I'll do, just to keep the record, clear, I'm gonna go ahead and express what I believe are going to be the new conditions, and obviously you can wordsmith, for instance, the one with the 11% and the, so that condition 3C, we would go ahead and amend that, to allow for the 11% windows to remain as so long as they could meet the scenic analysis.
Yep.
Okay. And then 3I, for the pier, I do think that essentially, my understanding now is that there are 4 possibilities. If there was that third piece to the bond, that was 110% of the estimated removal cost of the pier. Go ahead.
Removal and restoration.
And restoration, okay.
Maybe I can help with some wording here.
Yes, you certainly can.
Okay, so I'll read to you what potentially could be used. Evidence must be provided that the pier on the property is legally existing. If such evidence cannot be provided to TRPA satisfaction, the pier must be removed prior to acknowledgement of the permit, or the applicant shall post a security equal to 110% of the estimated cost for the removal and restoration of the pier and provide TRPA with all permissions necessary to remove the pier if the permittee fails to do so within so many months.
That's what you,
Well, I think from a construction standpoint, I would think that 6 months would be a sufficient period of time to remove it. Are there limitations on the time of year that you could do that type of work?
Phil, correct me if I'm wrong, and Tiffany, you need to jump in, but there is generally the season to work piers, either construct or I assume also deconstruct is over, is in the fall through before spawning. So it's the next 6 months would probably not include all of the next work season for pier building. So maybe you may want to extend that a little bit.
Well, could we say 6 months, a 6 month period within the work window, whenever that begins? So that 6 month period would begin running at the time that that work window opened. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that may be a little, it may be easier just to add some months on the end of 6 months.
Just say 9
Just
months.
say 9 months.
9 months, yeah, okay, let's do that. Okay,
Okay, so 9 months. The cost shall be determined upon the permittee's submittal of a plan and related cost estimate for the project. See attachment J for the security rules.
okay. And my understanding of what you said, John, is we don't have to add in the possibility that they could transfer in a pier right because they already have the right to do that.
Then they would prove up, that would constitute proving up.
Yep.
The legality of the pier.
And so, also in light of the length of time that this has been here, I do think that we should allow them to have one cycle of the lottery. And if they win, then they could go ahead and submit the application and move forward with that. I wish it was in 2024, but it's a year. And, you know, understanding that this pier has been there for, it sounds like 20 years or more. I feel like, I feel okay with that, the idea of having them go through one cycle.
So we'll need to adjust the condition to
Yeah.
allow for that.
Okay.
Do we write that in or do we just extend the amount of months?
Let's work on that with Phil to make certain we all understand, but essentially it's allowing the pier, if they choose to post the bond, or the security, then they would have then through, next June, July 25, to obtain a pier allocation or transfer. So it'd probably kick everything out. Instead of 6 months, it would be
Oh, right,
like 18
right,
or 20. And we have to,
right.
we would adjust that number to kick it out a year and a half plus. And that would get us through two work seasons, so they could remove it during any of those 2 times.
Okay,
But then if they don't get it, then we need to include the third season at the 25-26 season. That's when they,
for the removal.
that would be for the removal if they don't get it via the lottery.
Okay.
Because that removal date would be again like October, right?
Right.
And so, and then it's
October.
usually October to May or October to April or something, right? It's
We can get those. Tiffany, do you know off the top of your head when the dates for pier construction in the water?
Yeah, it's November 1st through May 1st, I believe, is when you can construct typically, and that's for spawning and feed and cover, unless there's a waiver from US Fish and Wildlife or one of the state wildlife agencies.
So then that would run us through May of 2026.
Okay. It's a long time, but I also, again, this wasn't something that was constructed a couple of years ago.
No.
So I think we'll go ahead and include that in the conditions.
Okay.
And I think those are the only changes to the conditions.
There was one other concern, which, because I believe the regulation says we can't submit an application with an existing facility, so is there an opportunity to allow that in the condition of the permit, so that if we do get awarded the permit, we're actually our proposal is to utilize the existing pier and modify that existing pier to meet the current standards of what TRPA would require under the full review, whether that's scenic or, fish habitat, or, the lower docks or the decks, or whatever it is that the TRPA would require modification to that existing pier at that point would be included in that application. And then we would make those modifications to that pier, but Tiffany made the comment that we can't submit an application with an existing facility.
I think, if you win the ability, or if you get a ticket from the lottery, then, what we would feel comfortable moving ahead with the application. I don't think we need it in this permit.
It's in the minutes.
Right, okay. Okay. So we have now documented the changes to the conditions. I don't have any further questions. I don't see any additional comment. So I'll go ahead and take action on the project. I'll approve the findings contained in the staff summary, and I'll approve the project based on the staff summary, the record evidence, and subject to the conditions contained in the attached draft permit as amended during this meeting. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. You have to adjourn.
Oh. And I'll adjourn the meeting. It's 3:36. Thank you, Catherine.
Don't see if we got one.